Ever get this like super annoying problem that just won't go away? Like no matter what you do, it keeps coming back.
Oh, totally. Like when you keep getting that engine light pop up in your car, even after you take it to the mechanic.
Exactly. It's like you're just putting a Band-Aid on a much bigger problem.
Yeah.
But what if we could actually get to the root of those issues and fix them for good?
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. You sent over this really cool RCA guidebook.
Yeah, this thing is packed with helpful methods to tackle those recurring problems.
It really is. And finding the root cause, it's kind of like it's like finding the source of a river. It helps you understand the why behind the problem.
I love that analogy. So let's jump into the first method this guidebook outlines, Pareto charts. Have you ever heard of those?
Oh yeah. Pareto charts are great for figuring out which problems are causing the most trouble so you're not wasting time on the small stuff.
It's about finding those vital few causes,
Right.
the ones that make the biggest impact.
Exactly. It's like that 80-20 rule, but for problems, 80% of your problems are probably coming from just 20% of the causes.
And a Pareto chart helps you visualize that, right?
Exactly. The guidebook actually gives a cool example with a factory. They found out most of their delays were because of missing parts. A Pareto chart made it super clear where to focus their efforts.
Wow, that's super practical. I can already see how that applies to tons of situations.
Oh, absolutely. It's a game changer once you start using it.
Okay, so moving on. How about the 5 whys method? Have you used that one before?
Oh, the 5 whys. Yeah, it's like being a detective. You keep asking why until you get to the bottom of thing.
Like, why is the car engine light on? Well, why is the sensor malfunctioning? And
Yeah.
just keep digging deeper.
Precisely. You don't stop at the surface level. You got to get to the root.
Yeah.
And the guidebook had this perfect example of the one a machine kept breaking down. Turned out the root cause was a typo in the instruction manual. Can you believe it?
Wow. Just goes to show sometimes the smallest things can cause the biggest headaches.
Absolutely. You never know until you really start asking why.
Okay, on to the next method. This one's a visual one, which I always appreciate. Fishbone diagrams. Ever use one of those?
Oh, yeah, fishbone diagrams. Those are great, especially when you've got a really thorny problem with a bunch of potential causes. It's like you can map it all out visually.
Right, like you're drawing out all the possible suspects in a mystery and you're trying to figure out who
Yeah.
did it.
Exactly. The guidebook talks about those classic categories like people, machines, the methods you're using, even the environment. Each of those becomes like a branch on your fishbone.
So you can really start to see the big picture
Yeah.
and how all those potential causes might be connected, right?
Yeah, and sometimes just like the act of actually writing it all down or drawing it out, that can help you have those aha moments.
Totally. Okay, shifting gears a bit here. Let's talk about scatter plots.
Mm,
I'll be honest, that one always seemed a little intimidating to me, all those data points.
I get that. But they're super useful once you get the hang of them.
Yeah.
Imagine you're trying to figure out if there's a connection between, say, temperature and how often a machine breaks down. A scatter plot can help you visualize that.
So like if the temperature goes up, does the machine break down more, that kind of thing? Yeah.
Exactly. It helps you spot those patterns, those correlations that you might not notice just by looking at a bunch of numbers.
And you can use those correlations to kind of guide your investigation, right?
Yeah,
Like back to conveyor belt example from before.
absolutely. Scatter plots would be perfect for that. See if there really is a link between the temperature of those parts and all those work orders.
Right, because maybe it's not the temperature itself, but something else that's changing when the temperature changes.
Exactly. Correlation doesn't always equal causation, as they say. Just because two things happen at the same time doesn't mean one is causing the other.
Oh, totally. Like that classic example, ice cream sales and shark attacks both go up in the summer. But that doesn't mean one causes the other, right?
Exactly. There's usually something else going on there, like, hot weather. Speaking of getting ahead of the game, let's talk about FMEA.
Ah, yes, failure mode and effects analysis. That one sounds pretty intense, like something out of a science fiction movie.
It sounds scarier than it is. Basically, you're just thinking about everything that could go wrong and then figuring out how to keep those things from happening or at least minimizing the damage if they do.
So it's like planning for the worst case scenario, but hopefully avoiding it altogether.
Exactly. The guidebook used this example of driving to work, thinking about all the things that could go wrong on your commute, flat tire, traffic jam, you name it.
And then figuring out how to prevent those things, or at least have a plan B if they do happen.
Right. So maybe you check your tire pressure before you leave, or you map out an alternate route just in case. It's all about being prepared.
Yeah, that's like Next level thinking right there. But it
Right.
makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Why wait for things to go wrong when you can try to head them off at the pass?
Exactly. And the good news is you don't have to be a fortune teller to do this stuff. The guidebook does a great job of laying out all the steps.
Right. It gives you all the tools you need. And the cool thing is you can actually use these methods together, right? It's not like you have to pick just one.
Totally. Think of it like you're a chef in the kitchen. You wouldn't just use one ingredient for every single dish, right? You
Yeah.
got to mix it up.
Right. You might use a Pareto chart to figure out your biggest bottlenecks.
Yeah.
Then use the 5 whys to dig deeper into each one.
Exactly. Or maybe you use a fishbone diagram to brainstorm solutions once you've used those other methods to pinpoint the root causes.
Yeah, it's all about finding the right combination of tools for the job.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all approach here.
This has been awesome. We've covered so much ground today. Pareto charts, 5 whys, fishbone diagrams, scatter plots, FMEA. It's like a whole toolkit for problem solving.
It really is. And one thing that struck me about this guidebook is that even though it's focused on manufacturing, these methods can really be applied to anything.
That's so true. Like, I could totally see myself using these to figure out why my wifey keeps cutting out.
Exactly. Or maybe you use it to finally organize that junk drawer, right?
Definitely. So to everyone listening, don't be afraid to experiment with these methods no matter what kind of problem you're facing. You might be surprised by what you discover.
Absolutely. And most importantly, have fun with it. Root cause analysis doesn't have to be scary. It's all about becoming a better problem solver.
I love that. Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the world of root cause analysis. We hope you've enjoyed the journey and feel equipped to tackle those pesky recurring problems head on. Until next time, happy problem solving.